The movie opens up with our main character, Hutch Mansell, seemingly injured and being interrogated by two police officers. His hands are cuffed, and it looks like he's committed some crime. Soon, he lights a cigarette and opens up a tuna can for his cat, which comes outside from his jacket. Two officers are sitting across from him, asking him questions. They inquire about his name, and he replies, "Title card." The scene then flashes to the past, and we know that Hutch is an ordinary guy leading a mundane life. He's married to Becca, a successful businesswoman, and they have two children together. Hutch works as an office employee in his father-in-law Eddie's metal fabrication company, but the monotonous work is taking its toll on him. Adding to his troubles, his son Blake shows no respect and barely acknowledges his presence when he comes home from work. In simple words, he treats him like a loser. At home, there is an emotional disconnect between Hutch and his wife Becca. They sleep on opposite sides of the bed, separated by a pillow. Hutch's sense of frustration and loneliness is ever growing. However, there is his daughter Sammy, who loves him a lot and enjoys spending time with him. Hutch is also very sensitive to her and takes good care of Sammy. One night, a dog's barking interrupts their peaceful sleep, alerting Hutch. He gets up to investigate and checks on Sammy, who is sound asleep in her room. As he descends the stairs, he makes a shocking discovery. Two intruders are breaking into their house. Filled with fear and adrenaline, Hutch grabs a golf club for protection and tries to discreetly call for help. Unfortunately, the female intruder notices Hutch making the call and points her gun at him, forcing him to stop. They demand money, while the male intruder insists on taking Hutch's watch and wedding ring. In a tense moment, Hutch tries to explain that they don't have much money in the house. During the robbery, the female intruder spots a glass bowl nearby, containing some money and a bracelet. She takes the contents of the bowl and prepares to leave. As this happens, Hutch notices a tattoo on her wrist and lets them take what they want without opposing. After a while, Blake arrives out of nowhere and tackles the male intruder. Hutch thinks of attacking the female robber with the golf club. He's got a clear shot, but he hesitates. Instead, he orders his son to let them go. The intruders then flee with the loot, and Blake ends up with a black eye from the scuffle. He also now thinks his dad's a baby-back bitch. Later in the night, the police arrive to investigate the break-in, but Hutch's family is disappointed in his decision to not confront the intruders. Even the policeman comments on how much of a loser he is. Feeling guilty and ashamed, Hutch goes downstairs to sleep on the couch, and Sammy joins him, offering the only affection that he receives that night. Sammy suggests getting a cat to bring some joy to their home. The next morning, Blake asks Hutch for an interview to complete a school project on veterans. However, Hutch admits that he wasn't a soldier and was only an auditor. Becca recommends that Blake interview his uncle for the project, who had real military experience. Hutch goes outside into the driveway, and his neighbor also emasculates him in front of his wife. Later at work, Hutch is approached by his brother-in-law Charlie, who belittles him for not being able to confront the intruders. If only Hutch was as much a staple of masculinity as every other man in his community. Charlie also provides Hutch with a gun, suggesting that he use it next time. After the conversation with Charlie, Hutch meets his father-in-law and proposes to buy his entire business. Unfortunately, the old man refuses his offer, suggesting he come with a good price next time. After this, Hutch goes to his office, locks the door, and contacts his adopted brother Harry through a radio. He shares everything that happened during the break-in, explaining why he didn't attack the intruders. He mentions that he realized that they were young, scared, and desperate for a small amount of money. Hutch also reveals that their gun wasn't even loaded, and they were doing all of this due to some compulsion. Harry assures him that he did the right thing, and advises against any reckless actions. Hutch also visits his father David at the nursing home, reminiscing about his past self. In the evening, when Hutch returns home, he finds his family getting ready for dinner, but there's a noticeable tension. Blake barely acknowledges his presence and seems angry for not helping him the previous night. However, Becca asks about his day and suggests that he sit in for dinner. On the other hand, Sammy seems quite upset, and when Hutch inquires about it, she mentions that she has lost her kitty cat bracelet, which she kept in the bowl. Hutch then remembers the intruders taking everything that was in the bowl during the break-in, and that's the last straw. Feeling determined to get back what his daughter is looking for, Hutch visits his father and takes his old FBI badge and gun to track down the burglars. After this, he visits a tattoo parlor where some people make fun of him. However, as soon as they notice a tattoo on his wrist, they change their attitude and thank him for his service. They also provide information about a person with a similar tattoo that he is looking for. With this lead, Hutch locates the couple who looted his house and confronts them, urging them to return his watch and Sammy's kitty cat bracelet.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet, motherfucker!
yells Bob Odenkirk. However, the couple mentions that they have no idea about the bracelet. Enraged, Hutch decides to search for it in the house, but he finds himself in a difficult situation when the couple's sick baby wakes up. He notices that the baby is severely ill, and the couple stole his money for its treatments. Because of this, Hutch decides to leave without further discussion and walks out of the house. Frustrated and upset, he vents his emotions by punching a wall repeatedly. Afterward, Hutch takes a bus to return home, but the ride is interrupted by a group of 5 thugs who board and start intimidating the passengers, especially a young girl sitting alone. Fed up with the thugs' behavior, Hutch takes action. He asks the driver to leave the bus and then confronts the attackers. Initially, he removes the bullets from his gun and warns them to stop, but when the thugs don't listen and laugh at him, Hutch loses his temper and unleashes a relentless beating on them. During the fight, he gets stabbed, but despite getting injured, he doesn't back down and almost beats the thugs to death. After dealing with the situation, he apologizes to the bus driver for the chaos and returns home. Late at night, Hutch arrives home to find his wife Becca waiting for him. She asks where he had been, and he replies that it felt like old times and that he misses her. Becca lovingly tends to his wounds as they discuss the emotional distance between them and the lack of intimacy in their marriage. Hutch asks her if she remembers who they used to be, hoping to reconnect with their past selves, and maybe, just maybe, get a little bit of ass that night. They then share a moment of closeness as Becca removes the pillow that had been separating them for so long. Meanwhile, Yulian Kuznetsov, a Russian mob enforcer, gets upset with his driver and walks into Club Molina in what is perhaps one of the best villain intros I've seen in ages. He crosses the street in front of live traffic, skips the line, cozies up to a bunch of regulars, and then performs on stage, throwing down some insane moves. Then talks with a group of men, assuring them of the security for Obshak, a large operation dealing with money laundering. Yulian introduces them to Pavel, his right-hand man, and assures them that their money will be safe. But despite his efforts to gain their trust, the guy criticizes his abilities due to his propensity for dance. In reply, Yulian just straight up kills one of their associates to prove a point and demonstrate how dangerous he is. Badass. In the next scene, Yulian visits his brother in the hospital, who turns out to be one of the thugs Hutch beat mercilessly during the bus incident. Yulian suspects that the attack is connected to Obshak, and he gets a Metro card found during the fight. Unfortunately, the card belongs to Hutch, and he becomes the gangster's #1 target. The next morning, Hutch feels confident as he prepares for the day. He's eating griddles and shit and feeling like a boss. He praises Blake for standing up to the intruders and calls him a brave kid. Suddenly, his brother Harry calls, warning him about Yulian and advising him to be cautious. Harry also tells him to meet a person called the Barber at a nearby salon for more information. Hutch wastes no time and meets the Barber, who provides details about Yulian and Obshak. The Barber warns that Yulian might target Hutch's family and advises him to keep them safe. Meanwhile, Yulian is burdened with taking care of his injured brother and wants to get revenge for his condition. His subordinate tells him about Hutch's father in a nursing home, and Yulian's secretary tries to find out more about Hutch, but the archives show nothing significant. At home, Hutch seems cheerful, cooking for his family and suggesting a trip to Italy, despite knowing the danger Yulian poses. Suddenly, he senses a threat when a car approaches their house. Hutch quickly takes his family to the basement, instructing them not to make noise or call the police. He promises to come back for them. Right then, Yulian's henchmen, led by Pavel, attack the house, but to their surprise, Hutch fights back fiercely, defeating most of the attackers. Sadly, Pavel attacks Hutch from behind with a taser and takes him away in a car. Later, unbeknownst to everyone, Hutch regains consciousness and finds himself in the trunk of the car. He manages to get hold of a fire extinguisher and dislocates his wrists to remove the handcuffs. You'd think he would escape out the trunk, but nope! Hutch kicks the seat down, then uses the fire extinguisher to blind his abductors, causing the car to crash. After this, he walks out of the trunk and reveals his true identity to Pavel, right before the latter passes away. Next, Hutch rushes back home and lets his family out of the basement. He then sends them to a safe place while he deals with the attackers. He assures Becca that he is doing all of this for their safety, and will definitely bring them back after everything settles. After his family leaves, Hutch places the injured men on the couch and reveals his secret to them. He confesses that he used to be an assassin, working for intelligence agencies to eliminate untouchable and dangerous targets. He mentions that he retired after sparing a man he was supposed to kill because he found out that the man had a happy family and was trying his best to get out of his criminal life. Since then, Hutch has been trying to stay away from his past. Later, he finds Sammy's kitty cat bracelet near a pool of blood and realizes that all this could have been avoided had he found the bracelet earlier. He then decides that he must erase all traces of the recent killings. To do so, he sets his house on fire, with Yulian's men still inside, and takes photographs of his family before leaving. He then steals his obnoxious neighbor's car and drives away. On the other hand, two assassins arrive at the nursing home and go straight to Hutch's dad, David's room. But the old man surprisingly takes them both down in a go. Shotgun Pappy, bitch! In the next scene, Hutch visits his father-in-law Eddie and pours a bag of gold bars on his desk, announcing that he's buying the company. Hutch then temporarily closes the factory, where he has gathered weapons and ammunition on his desk. He is aware that Julian will not leave him alone, and is preparing for the final battle. Harry also contacts Hutch on the radio, and he shares his plan with him. Following this, Hutch heads to the location where Julian's men are counting the Obshock money, and opens fire on them. After everyone is dead, he sets fire to Julian's valuable artwork, and the piles of money. Then, he goes to meet Julian and his henchmen at the club. The gangster boss is singing his ass off, and is then shocked to see Hutch sitting at a table in the crowd. So, he approaches him, but suddenly, Hutch reveals an explosive device hidden under his napkin, and he holds the detonator. He suggests Julian sit for a table talk, and the latter hesitantly agrees. Hutch then tells Julian that everything he had is burnt, and now he has two choices: either come after him, or take what little remains and flee. Hutch also suggests Julian forget him and live a normal life before leaving the club. Hutch goes to his car and crosses his fingers at the wheel, revealing that he still wants to be a badass, and he's kinda hoping Julian's not done with him. Sure enough, an enraged Julian orders all of his men to go after our hero. Hutch somehow manages to dodge the attack and diverts them to his factory, where he has set up his weapons. Unaware that David and Harry are inside the factory to help him, Hutch strategically sets up deadly traps to eliminate the gangsters. To his good luck, Julian's henchmen trigger the traps, and most of them get killed. David and Harry then kill the remaining minions with their impeccable combat skills. However, the notorious Julian manages to land a shot on Harry. Shortly after, when Hutch realizes that they have run out of bullets, he charges at Julian with a bulletproof glass shield, carrying a claymore mine attached to the front. He detonates it strategically as soon as he reaches Julian, killing him instantly. After everything is settled, Hutch calls Becca and leaves a loving message, informing them to return home. The scene then shifts to the scene from the beginning of the movie, where two police officers are interrogating Hutch. Right then, both of the officers get calls from their seniors, who suggest they leave Hutch alone, without filing any charges. 3 months later, Hutch and Becca are buying a new house when he receives a call, suggesting that his services are still needed for the intelligence agency. Hutch then inquires with the broker if the house has a basement. The movie ends with Harry and David driving in an RV filled with guns, heading to an undisclosed location along the coast. They are well aware that they may need the weapons at any point in their lives.